What's going on, College Hoops Heads party people? This is it's actually Mock Draft 1.0 on the Center Hub YouTube channel. My name is Stephen Bagel. I will be hosting this evening or afternoon or morning, depending when you're listening to this. I am joined by Conrad Pascal, Jeremy, Ongball Creator, Wilco from Floor and Ceiling, Cam, and Maxwell Geiger. Okay, so we're giving everyone 2 minutes on the clock. We did our draft order based off projected win totals in Vegas because obviously standings are a little skewed right now. So with that, the number one pick is going to the Brooklyn Nets, and that is going to be Wilco. So, Wilco, do you know your pick or do you need a couple minutes?
I know my pick. Yeah, I know my pick. I can go ahead with it if that's
Go ahead.
okay. Sure. So with the number one pick, the Nets will go with AJ Debinca out of BYU. He's my personal number one prospect heading into this season. I think that if I had to sum it up, sort of, briefly, although I don't know how possible that is here, given how good all of these, big three prospects are, but I sort of just think that the Bance is going to be as big as Boozer while being more skilled, more athletic, more flexible on the ball. I think Boozer will definitely have the efficiency edge, but I don't know if it will matter to such a large extent, um, especially, given the way that the NBA is headed in terms of spacing, in terms of pace, in terms of just, length and size. And then I love Darren Peterson as well, but I think AJ right now is and probably, I don't know, not probably, but has a chance of ending up just as efficient or higher than Peterson still. And yeah, I love Darren as a defender, but he's smaller. At the end of the day, the league is getting bigger. I think AJ will take, 3, 4 seasons maybe to come around as a defender. But I don't know that Peterson is going to add tremendous value either early on. So yeah, I'll go with AJ at number one, and you guys can take it from there.
Okay. So AJ DeMonster from BYU, number one. We have he goes to the Brooklyn Nets. Number two, the Washington Wizards, which is Maxwell, are on the clock.
Yep, the Washington Wizards here. Easy pick. Conrad already knows who I am selecting here at number two. The Washington Wizards will select Cameron Boozer at number two. Arguably the most dominant statistical player this decade from freshman year of high school to senior year of high school and, potentially freshman year of college. I think it's a phenomenal fit next to Alex Sarr, adding those guys together and pairing them together. Boozer kind of solves a lot of the Wizards' issues. He solves the rebounding issue. He solves the defensive issue, which the Wizards are second to last in the league right now in total defense. I think Cam Boozer is the perfect fit for this team. He's an underrated passer for his position, and he's a player who, as I said in the intro, has been arguably the most statistically dominant player from freshman year of high school to this current point of his career, compared to any player that's entered the draft this decade from, high school in America. So I think it's a perfect fit for the Wizards, and it's one of the final pieces for their rebuild.
Okay, so that puts the Utah Jazz up in number three, which is the Center Hub's very own Cam Hickey. Cam, do you know who you would like at number three, or do you need a couple minutes?
No, I think it's pretty easy, right?
Okay.
Probably.
We're just gonna go ahead and go with 6'5" guard from Kansas, Darren Peterson. I think when you're third in this draft, you kind of have the easiest job because you don't have to, pick between anyone. And Darren's special two-way talent, one of the best guard prospects since the Cade, Lukas, Ant-Mans. He should have an amazing year at Kansas with a huge workload. And he should be able to step in immediately, in my opinion, on both ends with, his wingspan, his defensive acumen, and, some of the special shot making and playmaking chops he's shown already. They should be excited for him out there in Utah. They just got lucky and finally got a, very positive young guard. they're probably gonna make some decisions in that backcourt, but Darren Pearson kicks out everybody, so it's not a big deal.
Okay, so far, AJ DeBonsta won to the Brooklyn Nets. Number 2, Cam Boozer is headed to the Washington Wizards, and number 3, Darren Peterson's headed to the Utah Jazz. That puts the Memphis Grizzlies, who is Jeremy, up at number 4.
Yeah, yeah. This is when the draft gets interesting, right? You want me to just go ahead with the pick?
Go ahead.
Yeah, well, we can maybe have more discussion about the other picks outside the top 3, right? Debating them, but yeah. So at 4, the Grizzlies will go with Nate Ament. It's an interesting pick. I, on my personal big board, have this next group of prospects, like the 4 to 8 range. In this 4 through 8, I have them all in the same tier. Very debatable, I think, this next group. But I think Ament, I do have him 4th on my board right now, and I think the fit's pretty good with the Grizzlies. This Grizzlies team, pretty much anybody can really fit, unless you're like a point guard trying to take that job away from Ja Morant. So really, like, anybody that ideally can shoot, because a lot of their guys aren't really great shooters, including some of their bigs like Edie and Brandon Clark, and Ja Morant's not a great shooter. So ideally, you're putting somebody that can shoot, and you can never really go wrong. Somebody with size that can shoot, that can play defense and rebound, handle the basketball, and he's obviously limited as like a driver and creator, and being able to just like go by people off the dribble and pressure the rim, but like that's what Ja Morant does really well. So he won't have to really do a ton of that driving and shot creation. So number 4 on my board, I think it's a good fit. So Grizzlies will go with Ament.
I had just realized I had the NBA draft music queued up, and I haven't been using it. So I know, terrible. So with that said, the pick is in. The Atlanta Hawks are up at number 5, which is me. I am going to take Kentucky's Jaden Quaintance. As Maxwell, clearly love that pick. Quaintance, I don't know if he's going to be the top guy available on my board, but in terms of Atlanta's needs, I would say he fits the best. And I'm not a huge proponent of, picking for 5th this early, but for a team like Atlanta who has, serious playoff aspirations, I think it's fine. Quaintance, as we know, was a reclass, played at 17 years old last year, so he's still one of the younger guys in the class. Switchable defensively to an extent for a center. For me, the question is how much of the offensive game really comes along, and obviously the health. I mean, he just tore his ACL in March, so I don't know how much we're going to see him this year. So by the time the draft comes around in July, I don't know if Quaintance is still going to be considered a top 5 pick. I would imagine he will be. But again, health permitting. So that puts the Charlotte Hornets up, which is Conrad, up at number 6. Conrad, you know who you're taking.
The pick is in.
There we
I'll
go.
preface by saying I was hoping Quaintance would have fallen to the Hornets. I think he would have been a little bit better as a long-term, center fixture as opposed to Ryan Kalkbrenner. Kudos to Kalk, though. But having said that, I'm just going to go with who the next guy, the next highest player on my board, and that is North Carolina's Caleb Wilson. Frankly, I think, again, for me, this is BPA, but I actually do think it's a good fit in the sense that I'm not convinced that Miles Bridges has a long-term future with Charlotte. So I could definitely see there being an opportunity, a path for Caleb Wilson to, really cement himself in that starting lineup. I think, in my opinion, I think Caleb Wilson is arguably one of the more or the most instinctual defender in this draft class. Offensively, I think the questions about his, his shooting, or perhaps the lack thereof, is definitely a fair, I wouldn't say concern, but definitely is something to monitor. But I really love his footwork, both ends of the court, and I think, again, if he's more of a forward as opposed to a wing, I think that just kind of puts him in a good position. I like what Charlotte's done this last draft class. I think there's enough shooting where, at least in the early stages of his career, he can kind of, take his time developing his outside game or his perimeter game, and be a force inside.
Okay, so that puts number 7, the Sacramento Kings, which is Maxwell. Maxwell, do you have your pick?
I do. With the 7th pick, the Sacramento Kings are selecting Michael Brown Jr. out of Louisville. For the Sacramento Kings, this is the highest player on my personal board at the moment. And for the Kings, I don't think they're in a position to draft based on need. This is a franchise that needs to draft the best player available. And Michael Brown Jr. has shown over the last 8 months that he is definitely worth lottery consideration, and high lottery consideration at that. He's a guard who's dynamic, who can change speeds. He's shown an ability to hit shots at all 3 levels. And for the Sacramento Kings, you don't really have a franchise player right now that's young that you're willing to build around heading into the new decade, and beyond. And Michael Brown Jr. is the type of player that you can, add to that type of core heading into the new rebuild in the new iteration of the Sacramento Kings. So I think this is a good pick for the Kings, BPA. And I think Michael Brown Jr. is going to be a very good player in the NBA.
Yeah, I think that pick, like, the Kings definitely need a point guard. So I think it makes a lot of sense. Like, they, all they have at point guard, is like Dennis Schroeder and Russell Westbrook. So, like, they definitely need a point guard.
100%.
You can definitely make the case that he's best player available right there. My only thing with that fit is, like, the Kings need defense. They have nobody that can defend on that team, So it's like, I may have gone with Yesufu, because he can really get after it on D. But it's just like at some point they need somebody that can defend. But
100%.
Nate Clifford can maybe help with the defense.
But is Yesufu playing in that off guard room? I mean, that's where the Kings are most stacked. Like, I'm not
Well, yeah,
it's like I think I have Yesufu right below Michael Brown. Like,
it would be like kind of crowded with all those wings, but DeRozan and Levine, like, some of these guys are pretty old, and hopefully like guys that you're building your franchise around, and trying to win something. So, like, it might be a situation where Yesufu comes off the bench as a rookie, and then by the time he's ready to start in year 2, like, they've gotten rid of some of those other guys and have a starting spot open for him.
That would be nice for him. Yeah, because he would have the reins, especially in somewhere like Sacramento. I like that shout.
I'm not as high on Yesufu as you guys, but I do think that he could sort of play even how Russ is playing this year with the Kings pretty early on, sort of as more of like an off-ball, not even as a swingman. I mean, Russ is playing the 4 at times.
Yeah.
Zach LaVine is also playing the 4 at times, but with Russ, I feel like they're sort of using him similarly to how the Rockets did, kind of focusing a lot more on what he can do on the inside and just kind of having him, off the ball a lot on offense and just kind of roaming around and trying to wreak havoc. I think Tunde can do something like that in the near future, just because I do sort of feel like he lacks a certain on-ball polish that, maybe Michael Brown does have. But yeah, those defensive questions and even just with his frame and stuff, I wonder how much he would be able to contribute so early.
Yeah, I'm not too worried about Michael Brown's defense. I don't think he's a great defender. I don't think he's terrible either. But, as I said, at some point, that Kings team should try to get some guys that are more, closer to that elite level defense if they want to try to win some games.
Okay, so that's Mikel Brown to Sacramento Kings at number 7. which puts the Indiana Pacers on the clock at number 8, and that is Cam. Cam, do you have your pick lined up?
Yeah.
Okay. So, hold on. Okay, the Indiana Pacers select. I can't hear you. Can anyone else?
I could a little bit, like it was cutting in and out,
Yeah.
and then I couldn't hear him at all.
Well,
Oh, there you go.
y'all can hear me now?
Yep.
We decided to go 6'11" big man from Germany, and out of the BBL, he's also at Washington now. On Steinbeck.
Okay.
I decided to go Steinbeck for Pacers because they need to reset the big man spot. Getting down, getting rid.
Cam, you're still going in and out a little bit. I heard the pick, but you're going.
All right, hold on, watch this. Hold on.
Okay, Hans Steinbach.
This is better.
Yep.
I decided to go with Steinbach just because they need, just some young pieces in the front court out there in Indiana. They're gonna have to reset. I definitely looked at some guards here. The depth drop off is kind of scary for a team looking for some star power off a pivot from Halliburton, blowing his leg up. So I think Steinbach is a pretty good pick here just because there's not many young bigs that you can trust other than, a couple hurt guys that I was kind of scared to pick. His health just seems the best. His production, kind of unmatched for a Euro prospect right now, especially as a big in the NCAA. And his rebounding, his IQ on defense, the play finishing, some of the touch, that's going to, translate immediately. He does have some jumper questions. He does have some mobility questions he will have to answer at the combine and, throughout his Big Ten season. But I'm not too mad at this pick. This pick, like I said, could have went, 4 or 5 of the directions. But I think they could use something reliable, I would say. And he has plenty of size and plenty of experience and plenty of IQ that, he'll at least be a, immediate contributor. Now, does he have the ceiling of some of these other guys? Probably not, but you still feel pretty good about what Steinbach can bring day one.
Okay. Anyone have any comments, or should we move on to number 9?
Underrated defender. That's all I'll say. Underrated defender. Again, I don't think he can be like a drop rim protector, but I think he's actually held his own defending in space. Again, that's assuming. I think he probably defends a little bit better as a 4 as opposed to like being a traditional 5. But I think some of the perception that like he's a massive like liability, I don't see that. I just don't see that with him.
I'll just say Steinbach with Rick Carlisle is beautiful for the basketball hipsters.
Okay, so that puts me on the clock with the Portland Trailblazers at number 9. The pick is in. And the Portland Trailblazers at pick number 9 are going to be selecting Chris Sinek from Houston. Conrad's laughing because we were talking about him in the group chat the other day. Watching this iteration of Portland Trailblazers basketball with just what they've assembled, I think they prioritize ball movement and they prioritize defense. Sinek, has shown shot-making flashes, even putting the ball on the floor a little bit, some ball handling, and some ball movement. So I think the flashes, I think he'd be a good yin to Donovan Klingen's yang. I think they could definitely play together as well. While Klingen has been, a very good rim protector, but he's starting to become more of a stretch big on offense. While I believe Sinek could, give them a dynamic shot maker that I don't think this roster necessarily has right now. Obviously Shaedon Sharpe and Dame Lillard will be back next year. But in terms of the front court, they don't have any I wouldn't say Denis or Toumani Camara really dynamic shot makers. So I feel like Sennick gives them, a 4 that could play alongside Klingon, provide that, put the ball on the floor. He's not a ball stopper. So I just think he fits his pull of the team really well, and I think he's the best player available. So that anyone?
I think it's an upside pick too, and Portland has been known to sometimes take an upside swing with Shaden Sharp. Was definitely an upside pick, somebody that there was some questions about, and it was kind of a risky pick, but they went for it. So I think it might be a reach here with CNAC, but he definitely has upside, and if they just kind of develop him, then all of a sudden you could have a real stud at the 4 who could even play some 5 if they need him to.
Yeah, and honestly, I think Indiana could afford to take a swing on a guy right now. Oh, not Indiana, sorry, Portland. So that puts the Chicago Bulls up at number 10, which is Wilco.
Yeah, I think the Bulls are in an interesting position here. They're doing much better than anyone expected so far this season. And I mean, of course, it's, very early on still, but I do think that there are some takeaways, even sort of continuing from last season. I think the pace that they play at really needs to be taken into consideration here whenever they, do make a draft pick next summer. Josh Giddey as well. I know that he's sort of a player that you either love or hate, but clearly to me, at least right now, he's a big part of what the Bulls do. I don't think that they're going to take the ball away from him. I don't think that there's much of a point in doing so either. So I'm going to maybe reach a little bit here, but this is a guy who I'm very high on. I think that he can give the Bulls some shooting that they really need, especially if Matas moves on the ball a lot more. I think that this guy can give the Bulls a lot of shooting, some decent size, can play really, really fast. I like Malik Thomas from Arkansas at number 10 for the Bulls. It's a little bit of I guess, a punt maybe. I haven't seen him on many first round boards even, but I think that he is very much slept on. Can be a nuclear shooter down the line. I think, looking at guys like Jared McCain or Trey Johnson over the last few years, Malik sort of reminds me of them, but he's able to play fast, coming from the OTE background. I think that, under Coach Cal, it's going to be the same story. So I think he'll be a pretty big riser.
Okay.
Yeah, he definitely looked good in that exhibition game they had the other day. What was it, against Memphis? I was like, whoa. And I kind of moved him up my board. I was like, well, how much? I don't want to move him up too much just based on one exhibition game, but he looks pretty good.
No,
his change of pace. Yeah, his change of pace in the exhibition has been very, very outstanding.
And he was playing some really good defense too,
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think he'll get steals for sure. I don't know that, he's not necessarily a super bouncy athlete, but he's smooth and he has a defensive motor, I think. His defense is a little bit loose. He can kind of just gamble or, give up sometimes, maybe doesn't make the second effort, at least before college. But I do think that all the tape coming out of preseason has been very encouraging. Reminds me a little bit of how Rob Dillingham came into college out of OTE as well. Actually, I mean, had a few more stops before that, but had those questions as well about, this guy can really make some tough shots and is an awesome ball handler, but can he fit into a team scheme? Can he not? I don't think Malik is maybe as, I don't know, as wild of a shot taker, although he does take some crazy shots, but there are some of those similar questions.
Okay, so that puts any other. Okay, so that puts Jeremy up again. I had to realize I gave you Memphis Grizzlies twice, Jeremy, at 4 and 11, but happy accident because now you get to control the future of the Memphis Grizzlies.
Yeah,
Right?
I guess it's good to just have that continuity. Yeah. At 11, the Grizzlies will go Tunde Yesufu. Fairly easy pick for me here. Like he's pretty firmly best player on the board for me. Again, like as I mentioned before, I have like 5 guys in that 4 to 8 tier that are all pretty close to each other. And Yesufu is the only guy that's still on the board from that tier for me. Fit wise, I think it can work. I mean, it's a little bit of a log jam with a lot of wings, that the Grizzlies have. But what I'm kind of picturing, like, I think it can work. Like, I think you could have Yesufu when he develops. You take a guy this high, like I think he could start for them once he's further along in his development. And then, between Jalen Wells and Cedric Coward, like one of them can start, the other can be off the bench as like a 6th or 7th man, So I think there can be enough minutes for all those wings without it being too much of a logjam there. And, Yesufu, like he's a 2-way wing. Like he just makes plays on both ends of the floor. Like there's some questions about like on offense, how he's kind of a little bit raw with the shooting, a little bit raw with the handle and driving stuff. Can kind of go, like some of his drives can just go sideways and turn it over. And but I mean, like he's young. He's a young player. Like, he's 19 years old. Like I think he can iron some of that stuff out over time and end up being like a really good 2-way wing who can just like, and I really like the combination of for Yesufu, his motor, his defense, and athleticism. You put those 3 things together. Like if I'm ranking these players in this draft class by those things, he's arguably like top 3 in this class in motor, defense, and athleticism. So that like is enough to have him pretty high up on my board, and think it's good value at 11.
Okay, so that puts the Toronto Raptors with pick number 12 on the clock, which is Conrad. Conrad, do you know who you're taking with number 12? Okay,
Pick is in. The pick is in.
Oh,
I tried
like
doing
that.
drum roll and it said bongo. Okay, that was a terrible drum roll.
Bongos. I like it.
Who are you taking at number 12 for the Toronto Raptors, Conrad?
Yeah, I mean, I know I'm a big BPA kind of guy, but in this case, I'm going to go a little bit further down my big board, only because I think the Raptors, they have these really fascinating pieces already in-house, BI, Scotty Barnes, RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickly. It has to culminate in something. These guys aren't on rookie deals anymore. I'd like to think that they can actually progress to being a competitive team and not just a theoretical team. So I'm going to go with a guy who I think still has upside, but is a quote unquote a guy who could kind of help them win now. So I'm going to go with Iowa's Bennett Sturtz. Yeah. I think kind of like in a weird way, I know Charlotte hasn't been a model franchise, but in my opinion, the way I look at what Charlotte did last year is they're young guys, but they're bringing in stability, high IQ players, process the game, understand how to read defenses. I feel like Sturtz could do the same for Toronto. One, I'm not convinced that Emmanuel Quickly is long for that team. And again, I think just a little bit more polished. I think when you have a bunch of ball handling wings like Scotty Barnes and Brandon Ingram to a certain extent, you also want a guard who is productive off ball. I think Sturtz can. I think he's a better, off ball catch and shoot player than Quickly. So I like that fit. It might not necessarily be the highest upside on paper, but again, I think that's what Toronto has done these last several seasons, right? Is kind of shoot for those high upside guys. I think Sturtz could kind of help, if anything, help them reach that perceived upside that I think fans kind of held in regard for those players.
Conrad, just, being real with me, how worried are you about the Raptors? Because, I mean, you said that they have a lot of fascinating pieces, but I feel that's a nice way of putting the roster construction that they've assembled. So I mean, yeah, I don't know. Like this would be a confusing pick for me. I think Sturts is a good pick here, but I mean, are you looking at it like? I mean, you sort of described it, but I'm just wondering, like,
If
is the
I'm
roster a
if I
blank
were to
canvas? Like,
oversimplify how I look at the situation, is I'm trying to find a guy who could play with Scotty Barnes long term. Because I'm not
okay,
convinced
okay,
any of those other guys, right? I believe the way I look at it
And,
is a lot
and
of those
CMB,
guys,
I'm sure they're
or at
probably
CMB, yeah,
yeah
yeah.
they're keeping Colin Murray Boyles for a while too. You
yeah,
know,
But the
those are probably
guys
the
who
only
are on
anybody else could get traded at any minute probably.
exactly, that's the thing, right? The guys who are on the big contracts, to me, they were retained simply because they have perceived trade value around the league. But I think Scotty Barnes will be staying. So I was like, okay, Scotty Barnes, ball handling forward, who can play off of him, but also has playmaking skills. I'm gonna go with Sturts.
Okay. So that puts the Dallas Mavericks, on the clock at number 13, and that is Wilco.
this is not an easy pick at all, and
Yeah, the draft gets wild at this point.
that's really how I'm feeling right now.
Yeah, wild west.
It's tough. It's tough because, I mean, of course, I could just go BPA here, but I do think like if we're going with teams this early on, it makes sense to at least consider more or less what their picture looks like. Um, I mean, it does seem kind of clear to me, I guess, that the Mavs. I don't know if they need a guard, but they're looking for a guard. At least right now, I don't know if they can get the necessary guard help in the draft, but I mean they're looking for a ball handler. I think giving Cooper Flag on ball reps right now is fine, but longer term you do want to shift his role a little bit, even if that will still involve a lot of ball handling. Um, I'm not convinced that anyone or any guard here in the draft is gonna help the Mavs. So I'll go with a big um, that in some ways reminds me a little bit of Derek Lively, although not close to being as dominant of a defender. I don't think, but I think he can do similar things offensively, and he can kind of fit early on. I'll go with Malachi Moreno from Kentucky. Um, Not convinced that he's a one and done. I think he has some work to do with his body, especially just getting in a little bit of a, more NBA shape. But if the Mavs are contending for, or trying to contend, I should say, for a championship in the short term, not really sure that will be the case actually. But if that's the theory behind their roster at least, then I think Malachi can, be a guy that gives them regular season minutes and then maybe by year two, give them something in the playoffs.
I'm a little surprised. I thought you were gonna go with Sergio De La Rey, because I thought, aren't you kind of high on De La Rey? And like you were talking about how the Mavs need a guard, but maybe just thought he was a little too high for him.
I'm high on him. I'm high on him. I'm higher on him on my own personal board than 13, but I just kind of felt like I don't know if they're gonna have Anthony Davis and they're gonna have Flag for the longer term. I sort of feel like they might want a little bit more of a guard who can come in and immediately set the table. I feel like
Okay.
De La Rey might be a little bit more of an off-ball guard to start at first, or an off-ball playmaker, like a connective playmaker.
Yeah,
And
and it
then
might be
maybe
like a
like
long-term development.
yeah,
It might take him a while to be ready for a team like the Mavericks
yeah,
that's
I
trying to
think
win.
so.
Okay, so that puts the Miami Heat up with pick number 14, which is Cam. Cam, who are the Miami Heat selecting to round out the lottery?
They decided to go with 6'11" big man from Duke, Pat Ngongba. I think he was actually in play for me at 8, but I knew no one was probably gonna get him. someone did steal Sturts from me. I wanted Sturts really bad for the Heat, but I think BPA here is definitely in Godwood. The draft just gets weird, like we all said. It just gets super weird, especially with guards. I mean, just don't really like any of the guard fits really, unless you just, taking that kind of swing. And the Heat aren't trying to take swings or kind of, you kind of want prospects with translatable skill sets immediately. I think Ngagwa, he definitely has the requisite rim runner built baseline, and he also shows a lot of real playmaking upside. With the handle, the connectivity. He's a big boy, super long arms, and he's definitely primed for a huge year at Duke this year. So I think the Heat going, Ngangba here now they can go Ware and Ngangba and Bam in the front court and just be set for life, honestly, and even move off of Bam if they want to down the line, because you can easily play Ware and Ngangba together. But yeah, I think Ngangba's probably just BPA here and pretty great fit, especially at 14 where you're not really trying. I mean, you would love to get a shoe-in starter, but it's not a necessity at 14. So I like Ngangba here.
Okay, so that puts Jeremy up with the Boston Celtics, his Boston Celtics, at number 15.
No bias. Yeah, you Cam just took the guy I was gonna draft. I was gonna take Gamba, and that makes this a harder pick because I have a little bit of like a tier break. It's like that's like my lottery. And Gamba is like the last guy that I have right now in my lottery, and then it's like another tier down. But the Celtics really need they need a big. They need a center. So it's like there's not really any other. I'd have to go down to like the two tiers down basically to the other centers on my board. So it's like, do I reach for a center or take like best player available? This is a tricky pick. So I don't know. And like, even though I just wrote an article for the Center Hub about how Jason Tatum can play center, I'm still not really sure that they're actually going to do that. The Celtics, I don't know. They probably are just going to keep. I don't know if they're going to actually have him play center. So I'll go with Alex Condon for a big for the Celtics here. I think he can fit in with what the Celtics do. The Celtics, they like bigs that can pass. Condon is obviously he's a good passer. Usually he obviously had some moments during March Madness last year where, he had some like concerning turnovers, like just making basic DHOs, couldn't hang on to the ball. But I think he'll iron that out this season. I think it was just like some of it was like nerves, first time playing in such a big stage and kind of messed up a few times in March Madness. But like overall, like the guy's he's a 7-footer and he's pretty athletic. He's pretty bouncy. Like he plays hard. He's pretty high feel, high IQ. He can shoot threes a little bit. And I think they keep working at it. The Celtics can develop his shooting even more and he can kind of block shots pretty well. Be in the right spots defensively. I don't know if he would be like a starter, but he could possibly be like a backup and big man. And if things really work out well for him, he could maybe, be a starting big for them. So tough choice here, but that's what I'll go with. And, also like he just kind of has that experience of winning a championship. The Celtics, they just won a championship in 2024. Like, they want winning players that are all about winning and putting the team first. And Condon obviously knows about that, playing a valuable role on a team that just won a championship. So that's what we'll go with here.
Okay, so that puts the Milwaukee Bucks up with pick number 16, which is me. So I'm going to with the Milwaukee Bucks, take Arizona freshman Braden Burris. I I like the shot making. I like the self creation, and that's something the Bucks don't really have alongside Giannis. Like when they're relying on Cole Anthony to come off the bench to be like the main scorer behind Giannis. Like, and again, like there's a good shot by 2026 draft. Giannis might not be on the Bucks, or shortly thereafter be getting. We don't know, but as long as Giannis is on the team, the Milwaukee Bucks need to prioritize building around him. And again, I like the shot creation. I like the shooting. I like the shot making. He has decent size. He's 6'4". He's listed at 205 pounds. So yeah, I'm going to take Braden Furious from Arizona.
And even if they trade Giannis, they're gonna have even more of a need for somebody that can score the basketball
Yeah.
and, you know, create his own shot. So
Kuzma.
yikes. Maybe if you want to tank for a high pick in the 2027 draft, which is supposed to be not as good, but
So that puts number 17, the San Antonio Spurs with Maxwell.
Sorry, I was waiting for the jingle.
Oh shoot! Sorry, I was making the banner.
No worries.
isn't
No
that
worries.
a every pick? So I had a pick
So-
when I was like, oh, should I wait for it? I'll just talk.
Oh, it keeps going if I don't pause it.
So the rich get richer here with the Spurs. At 17, we're kind of picking a little bit for need. The Spurs only have 3 front court players under contract in 2026, 2027. That is Carter Bryant, the rookie who has yet to show anything in the regular season, Victor Wembanyama, and Luke Cornett. So with that, with the 17th pick, the San Antonio Spurs, with a slight reach on my board, will take Yaxo Lendenberg, Steven Bagel's guy from Michigan, a big who can possibly play some small ball 5, can definitely play some 4, high IQ, both offensively and defensively, and a guy that I think will fit very nicely next to Victor Wembanyama in 4 or 5 lineups with him, and a player that I think is versatile and brings a lot of interesting aspects both offensively and defensively to the Spurs, who only have 2 bigs or 2 front court players who are long-term pieces, that being Carter Bryant and Victor Wembanyama.
Very Spurs player. I'll say that. Very
That
Spurs
as well.
player.
Very Spurs player.
And he won't have to do it all, like last year at UAB and to some extent this year at Michigan. He's like the guy and has to, have the ball in his hands a lot and has to create a lot, which sometimes works well, but like sometimes him having to carry the load results in, some possessions where he doesn't look so great. But if he's just like a 4th or 5th option on a Spurs team with a bunch of other guys that can create and handle the ball and score, he could eat, as they say, right?
Yeah, and I think with Lendenborg, he's the type of player who has played a limited role and has stepped into a larger role, and is the type of player who can step back into a limited role and play it with really great, success. So that's also why I like him for the Spurs, is he's the type of player who's shown, he can be the centerpiece of a team, or he will show that this year. And then, and he's shown that last year, but also he's shown that he can fit within, the construct of a team. So I think for the Spurs, he's kind of like that perfect player to, he's an older player. He's older than Victor Wembanyama right now, so type of player that's a pretty safe gamble for the Spurs late in the first round, or middle of the first round, I should say.
Okay, so that puts pick number 18, which is Conrad with the Detroit Pistons.
Damn it. Yeah. I got a number of options now, man. It's gone in a number of directions. I've been mulling this as you guys have been talking about Yaxel. Go ahead. I guess the pick is in.
Wait. Okay, there we go.
Yeah, I lied. I don't know if the pick is in. Man, okay, let's see. I feel
Talk
like
about Yaxel while you think about it.
I know, dude. No, I'm thinking like Detroit. They have. They're closer to being, like a legitimate contender in the East than they are continuing this rebuild. I love the guys that they have already brought in. on the record, I'm high on Ron Holland II. I'm a huge Asar Thompson fan. The defensive upside of this team, with Caden in the fold and Jalen Duren, is high. Obviously, scoring, specifically shooting, has been problematic, inconsistent at best. At a certain point, I do think they do need to factor in need into their selection. So in that case, this guy is not the next highest on my draft board, but I like him nonetheless. So I'm going to go with Isaiah Harwell. Yeah, I really love his 3-and-D potential. I think, in EYBL, he showed a lot of some nice shot creation. I think that's the problem with a lot of the guards they've surrounded Cade with. They're a little too one-dimensional, right? They're either just catch and shoot or they're good drivers, but they can't shoot from outside. I think Harwell has the potential to do a little bit of both, right? To be able to kind of, at the very least, attack closeouts, create a little bit, pull up in the mid-range. They need a little bit more of that versatility. We saw it last year, even with Dennis Schroeder. They're just too one-dimensional. If the first action's taken away, it becomes an offensive slog. So I think they need a little bit more guys like that, movement shooters who could also do a little bit of ball handling, a little playmaking. I like the potential there. And again, they have so much depth that they don't need to rush him in.
He was the highest guy on my board, Conrad, by the way. That's why you got the applause.
Okay, there you go.
So, okay, Isaiah Harwell to Houston at 18. Oh, Detroit at
Conrad,
18.
do you think that Harwell ends up being the highest drafted guy when it's actual draft time? Out of Houston, I mean.
No. Probably not.
Chris Sinak was already selected too.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, like, come next summer.
I mean, I still think Sinak
Okay.
will go ahead, but I do still have my questions about Sinak. I mean, we kind of moved by that. I think a lot of what Steven said about Sinak makes sense if you truly believe he's a legitimate NBA power forward. I'm skeptical at this point in time, but we shall see.
I think
Anyone here a Tugler Truther?
a little bit.
I've been moving Tugler on my board.
Not in the first.
It's funny you mentioned that.
He's in my 40s.
I think he's got a case as like possibly the highest, the best prospect on Houston. Maybe not long term. I think Harwell and even Kingston Flemings and Sinak might.
Yeah, Kingston Flemings has some defensive.
Yeah. I mean, those guys. I think there's a chance that all three of them might be multi-year guys at Houston. You know? Especially it's going to be interesting to see. Last year, we saw so many guys return to college to get NIL, and we're going to see that again, especially since the 2027 draft is, people are saying that that's a weaker draft. So guys are going to try to return to go higher in next year's draft. So I wouldn't be shocked if all three of those freshmen for Houston return.
I mean, perhaps I'm being
so.
I'm thinking the optimistic outcome for Harwell's season this year. If he's still he was 43% on 8 attempts, 43% from 3 last year on around 8 attempts. If he's somewhere around 40% with that kind of volume, I feel like he'll definitely get, first round consideration. So I was like, okay, all right, I'll pull the trigger here. But all the other prospects I like ahead of him, there's a lot of question marks with their shooting. So I'm I can't send another one of those guys to Detroit.
So that puts OKC up at number 19, which is Cam.
At number 19.
Wait.
Yeah, hit the music.
Okay. There you go.
Number 19, the OKC Thunder decided to go with 6'7" wing from San Diego State, Miles Bird. Once again, way too much variance at this part of the draft. But I think Bird, he checks pretty much a lot of the boxes that the Thunder like in their players, length, great defense, high feel, shoots a ton of threes, which we know they're going to love. Fell off a little bit, 3-point efficiency wise last year. But I mean, the free throw percentage and, the insane volume of threes he took we're pretty certain he's gonna up that back up about 4 or 5% this year. I feel like that was a shot variance, especially with the amount of threes he was taking. He's a special defender, one of the best defenders in the country, and he very underrated. Feel can legitimately be a secondary playmaker for you. Can be a secondary ball handler. That is up for debate. His age and some of the finishing woes can kind of turn you off a little bit. That's why I feel like this pick is very high variance. But he checks a lot of modern basketball boxes, and the Thunder could definitely utilize him easily. And they'll be able to utilize him more than some of these like kind of swing freshmen or sophomores that you would kind of look at 19. You're not crazy about the upperclassmen that you're gonna look at, especially since you don't necessarily need a big that bad. But yeah, just getting a first round pick that can play day one would be kind of cool for the Thunder, right? So I think, especially with them kind of hitting on Mitchell a little bit, and with Sorber and Topic being out forever, you will look for an immediate impact guy. And I think the defense, field, and shooting of Bird could definitely do it for you.
For what it's worth, OKC is like so deep that I understand Camp's point. Like, you want a guy who could play now with your last 2 first round picks out, but like they're just so deep. Like, I don't know if he would even play anyway, but that's not his fault.
Yeah.
So, okay, so that puts number 20, which is the Los Angeles Lakers, which is going to be picked by myself. At number 20, the Los Angeles Lakers are going to select Braylon Mullins from UConn. Just feels like, I want to say feels like a LeBron teammate, but like we don't even know if LeBron's going to be there this time next year. But nonetheless, he was still the highest guy on my board. So I'm making the banner as I'm talking here. So highest guy on my board, high feel, great movement shooter. Like, even playing alongside Luka and Austin Reeves, I could just see him being, 6'5", so he has a little bit of size, playing alongside Luka, just running around screens, spot ups. And, I think he has a high IQ, and I think he's pretty good defensively. So it's just an element that I haven't really seen the Lakers have with like a true 3-and-D player, for what it's worth. So it's just a different dynamic player to add to that roster. Okay. So let's move on to pick 21.
Mm-hmm.
21's the Atlanta Hawks, which is Wilco.
Yeah. So, I think that this is a guy who shouldn't have dropped this far. Sort of the only guy that I'm viewing on the Hawks as a real long-term piece here is Jalen Johnson. So the way that I'm thinking about building a roster around him, not comparing him to these guys, but just sort of the idea here would be like LeBron or Ben Simmons, sort of like that roster construction around him. I want shooting, I want, feel, I want some defense, some size. I want someone who can be productive without taking too many touches of the ball and making quick decisions. So, Jeremy, you mentioned him earlier, but I'll go with Sergio De La Rey here, from Valencia. I really believe that he is developing into a great three-point shooter. I love his decision making. I think that he can read defenses quickly. He's got good size at around 6'6". Not an awesome athlete, but decent enough, I think, growing into his body nicely. Has really, I think, continued to expand his game this season in the Spanish league and in the EuroLeague. So yeah, I really believe in De La Rey as an NBA player. I have him much higher than this on my personal board. So I think that if he falls to 21 come actual draft, he'll be a big time steal.
Yeah, and they're the Hawks in the backcourt, like it could work well off of Trey. Trey has the ball. He gives them somebody that can shoot, and Dyson Daniels gives them like this crazy defender guard, and then De La Rey kind of complements Daniels as maybe not as much defense, but more ball handling and shooting. So could be, nice complementary skills in the backcourt.
Yeah, 100%. I think you're spot on.
So that puts us at pick number 22, which is the Charlotte Hornets, which means it's Conrad. Conrad, do I need to play the music again?
The pick is in. Begrudgingly, the pick is in.
Yeah, these picks at this point in the draft, it gets a little tricky. A lot of different ways you could go.
I mean, we're still in a range, on draft boards where I like these prospects. I'm just not sure where their best landing spot is. But so, again, in the spirit of this exercise, we're kind of making some assumptions, or we're kind of creating optionality for these teams. Me personally, I've never been sold that LaMelo Ball is the long-term franchise player for the Charlotte Hornets. And frankly, I think they do need some additional actual point guard depth. So I'm going to go with a guy who I think has some upside. I don't know if he's a one-and-done player. Depends how he does this year, but I'm going to go with Darius Acuff. Again, I think he fits very similar to the manner in which they've already been playing, up-tempo, free-flowing, getting up a lot of shots. Is he the fastest, like one of the fastest guys in college basketball? Like in a pure 40, maybe not, but a live dribble, he's got to be in the mix, Again, Steve and I say all the time, I think, the term walking paint touch is used a little too loosely, but I think Acuff definitely fits that description. And again, right, at the very least, I think he is a great guy to add to their backcourt rotation, their guard depth. And who knows? I think he potentially has some starter potential in him. Now, what does that mean? I don't know if that's necessarily like all NBA or anything like that. But I think he definitely has the ability, like the court vision and everything, to really maximize those athletic wings that Charlotte has amassed these last couple seasons.
Okay, so that puts, let me see, Jeremy up at pick 23 with OKC, who just took Miles Bird at pick 19.
Yeah, this draft is so interesting. Like the Thunder have so many picks. Like, what do they got? Like, I think between the first and second round, they have like 5 or 6 picks, and it's like they already have so much depth. So it's like, what do you do? I mean, obviously they're going to end up trading some of these picks. They're not going to draft like 5 or 6 guys, but we're obviously not doing trades here. Maybe in a later mock draft we will. They'll trade some of these picks. I'm going to go with Thomas Hauge. I think it's Hauge. It's Hauge, I think is how you say it. It's a little tricky. But I think like the winning DNA that he's got, like he's a winning player, obviously coming off that championship with Florida, and he made so many big plays, clutch plays, and OKC, like they're coming off a championship, they're heavy favorites to win another championship, and like a team like that, like as we talked about a few minutes ago, they're probably better off like drafting like a win now player, like somebody who's ready now, to come in and contribute to this team that already is like winning championships. Like, who can we plug in and, not start probably, but just contribute a little bit here and there off the bench. Then the Thunder, they drafted Miles Bird earlier, like a 2-3 type of wing. So now, we draft a bigger player here with Hauge, someone who's bigger, stronger, but can, you look at the Thunder, like they just look for versatile guys that can defend, guys that can shoot a little bit, handle the ball a little bit, and drive, create, play that drive and kick game, and also be able to shoot and defend, like versatility. And that's what Hauge can bring, maybe not the highest upside. He's an older guy, but this is going to be a 23-year-old rookie. But again, like the Thunder, they don't really need somebody to come in and do everything for them. They just need somebody to come in and play a role. And I think Haug can do that for them.
Okay, so then that puts Maxwell up at pick 24 with the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Yeah, the Minnesota Timberwolves could go multiple ways here. Obviously, they could use some love in the front court. They could obviously use some love in the backcourt as well. We're kind of cutting the difference here. We're going to take Darion Williams out of NC State here. A player who is effective in the low post as a off guard, if you will. A player who can defend multiple positions on the perimeter, even can defend small bigs down low. For Chris Finch and the Minnesota Timberwolves, they're not privy to playing young players, especially rookies. So for a 23-year-old rookie, and he will be 23 years old when he joins the Minnesota Timberwolves in this hypothetical situation, I think it's a good situation for him, being an older player coming into the Timberwolves. And I think he's a player who can play NBA defense as a rookie. And offensively, I think he's capable of scoring off ball in multiple ways. And I think that's good being on a team like the Timberwolves who have multiple dominant on ball players. So Darion Williams to Minnesota at pick 24.
Okay, so Darion Williams pick 24, which puts Conrad up with his Golden State Warriors at pick 25.
Okay. Pick us in.
Okay, hold on.
I take this pick seriously. I'm wearing my Warriors hoodie and everything like that. So, given the state of the team as it is now, guys who are under contract, in years past, I think there was a little bit of hesitancy or reluctance to draft kind of like project players. Because there was like time we didn't have Jimmy Butler yet. Steph, Jimmy, Draymond, they're all on contract for next year, even Al Horford, So I think there's enough veteran stability where they can bring in a young guy who may need some developmental time. I don't think this guy should have dropped as much as he did. So I'm just going to bank on the upside. I'm going to go with Dash Daniels. Yeah. Again, I think, as much attention and fanfare that the Warriors get for, the 3-pointers, Steph Curry, the Curry flurries and everything, they basically, when they've been good these last several seasons, it's because they've had, the ability to defend consistently and at a high level. That's always going to be, kind of like their foundation. So I think a guy like Dash Daniels can come in, just again, be a defensive playmaker. Will Richards already kind of worked out, these early days. I think GP2 is not long for this team. So I think there is, again, an opportunity for bringing in a guy like Daniels. There's some other guys I like too who kind of fell on the draft board, but I like Daniels fitting here. Very cerebral player. I know, again, the shooting questions, if not concerns, will be something to continue to monitor. But I think he provides a high floor, with his defensive IQ.
So OKC up once again, pick 26. This is going to be Jeremy again. They have taken Miles Bird and they have taken Thomas Haug, as Jeremy correctly pronounced his name, I believe. I don't think I did though. Jeremy, who is OKC taking at pick 26?
Oh gosh. Yeah, this is a tricky one. A lot of different directions they could go. I mean, I get some other guys like higher up on my board, but I just think because of the Thunder's depth, I don't want to take a guy and they just don't really have a chance to really play if there's so many other guys in front of them on that team. And I'm not fully sure that Haug is a center in the NBA. Might end up being more of like a combo forward. And I think the Thunder, just looking at what they need, Chet Holmgren gets hurt sometimes, and Hartenstein might not be there long term. I think they might get to the point financially with the second apron when all these contract extensions kick in with Chet and J-Dub and SGA that they might need to move Hartenstein. So I think they need to like get somebody else at center. So I'll go with Johan Gruenlo. I don't want to am I mispronouncing that? It's a trick. Johan Grunlow from Germany, now playing at Virginia. I just think he's a guy that I think can fit the NBA pretty well. Like there's shooting upside and there's rim protection upside. And he's like 6'10", 6'11". He's high feel, like reads the game pretty well, in the right spots, in the right positions on both ends of the floor, can set screens, kind of just do the little things that a big man needs to do, while having some shooting upside and rim protection upside, gives him, some depth in the front court. Probably wouldn't feel like I need as much depth in the front court, like if Thomas Sorber was healthy, but he's injured for a while. So might as well try to pick up another piece in the front court there for some depth.
Okay. Johan Grunlow, who's now at Virginia playing in the ACC, obviously. Number 27, and Jeremy is going to be signing off. So, Jeremy, we appreciate you taking the time. Go follow him on Twitter, on X, at OnBallCreator. Go check out his work at the Center Hub. He just did an awesome article about, again, Jason Tatum potentially playing center upon his return to the Boston Celtics. I highly recommend you checking it out. He's also writing for Busting Brackets as well. Is that correct?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So, again, go check out his work. You can find everything at OnBallCreator on Twitter. And, Jeremy, we appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, thanks, guys. We'll talk to you later. Thanks, everybody, for watching.
So that puts Cam up with the Denver Nuggets at pick 27.
You can get the music. I got my pick.
Come on, Kamish.
Conrad, it's tough doing the sounds and the banner and updating this. Okay, relax. Okay, so Denver Nuggets are up.
I can't hear you.
So we decided to go with the 6'4" point guard from Houston, Kingston Flemings. He's actually starting, according to a friend that went to I think they played Mississippi State recently, like this weekend. He's actually starting now. I think Kingston Flemings with usage should easily play himself into top 20 conversations. He arguably had the best profile for any freshman point guard coming in. And he's a special defender, big time rim pressure, big time athlete. Wingspan will come under question. He might be only a +1 guy, so the defensive upside can get put under question. But we believe he decently flawless player as far as doesn't really have any glaring issues. Just has to improve on a couple things. But he does all the the traditional point guard stuff already, and he has some real upside as far as getting up threes, creating his own shot, and just facilitating offense. He's a very, very, very polished point guard prospect with some real high end athleticism and defense to kind of hang his hat on. I think here at 27, why not take a swing like this, especially if he's played at a high level forever, and he's shown he can run a big boy offense. Coach Sampson's hard on his freshman, and I think the Nuggets could easily use a guy like this. They haven't really drafted a young guard in centuries, and they definitely need it in that backcourt. It's getting a tad stale with Jamal Murray and whoever they decide to put at the 2. So I think Kingston Flemings could definitely come in and give them real infusion of youth and real upside at the point guard position.
As Maxwell says in the private chat we have here, great pick for Denver who needs upside guards. I mean, that pretty much hits the nail on the head there. So then we have Wilco coming up, and Cam also obviously alluded to that as well in terms of the young upside guard that Denver doesn't typically take. So Wilco is up with pick 28 for the New York Knicks.
I think the Knicks kind of clearly have a big or a type of big that they like. You know, above the rim, play finisher, plays real hard, rebounds, does the dirty work. Um, I'll go for Flory Bidunga here from Kansas. I think you can't really rely on Mitchell Robinson that much. Can kind of give you that continuity, Flory. And yeah, I think that at 28, he has a pretty high chance of adding real value to an NBA team here. So I actually, yeah, I really love this pick.
So that's Floyd Bidunga from Kansas. That puts me on the clock. Okay. I had not realized I was on deck. Anyway, I am going to take. I wish Jeremy was still here for this pick, but the pick is in. That puts the Cleveland Cavaliers on the clock at pick 29. And the Cleveland Cavaliers are going to take Nicolas Avdalis, who was playing in Greece, I believe, and now he's playing at Virginia Tech. I watched him in the U20s. He's been awesome. He was awesome there. I think he actually had almost averaged a triple-double, if I'm remembering correctly. But the Cavs need, they don't need, but behind Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell, I think they obviously have Lonzo Ball as well. So, it's a little bit of an embarrassment of riches for them. But Nicolas Avdalis is a guy who got some draft hype last year, decided to go the college route, and I think he's going to be awesome for Virginia Tech. And then that means final pick is Maxwell with the Washington Wizards at number 30. Hold on.
Okay. This is an interesting pick for the Wizards because they just walked away with, Cam Boozer in this draft. So I think the Wizards would probably go with a perimeter player at this slot. I'm going to go with BPA, best player available. It's LeBaron Philon for me. He's dynamic guard and a player who can potentially fill it up at the NBA level. I like his change of pace, and I like the way he attacks. Consistency is the thing that I want to see from him this year. And I want to see more on-ball reps from him this year. And I want to see more playmaking chops from him. But for the Wizards at pick 30 in the first round in this mock in late October, LeBaron Philon, BPA, best player available. It's a great swing for them at pick 30. And it's a player that, getting him at this selection, he could produce way more than, you're bargaining for at pick 30. So I like that pick for the Wizards.
Maxwell, for what it's worth, I thought you were going to take the Cincinnati guy, Sean
Abayev.
I debated him with Cleveland at 29 for what it's worth. I know you and I were very high on him.
Yeah, Sean Abayev is a player that I have ranked in my top 40 right now. But again, he's kind of more particular fit.
Yeah.
And so is LeBaron Philon, but at this point, he's so much ranked. He's so much higher. He's a lottery type guy for me at this point in time.
There are a lot of interesting names that were not selected in our first round. I think this is very fascinating.
Koa Pete, Carter Knox, Kareem Lopez all didn't go. Those were the main three that stuck out for me for what it's worth.
Nick Kamenia,
Tahad Pettiford, Caden Boozer,
JT Toppin.
Yeah. So interesting exercise this early in the season. Obviously, college basketball is starting on Monday, the season. So we appreciate you guys watching. Check out our work. It's now thecenterhub.substack.com. We didn't get an old domain yet, but we do plan on being the-center-hub once again.com. But we are now on Substack. Go check out our website there. Go buy the College Basketball Season Preview magazine. It is $12. 413 teams it covers, or 413 pages. It covers all 365 teams. Go check that out. We work tirelessly to get that out to you guys. Otherwise, you could follow me on Twitter at @the_NBAGEL. That's NBAGELL. You could follow Conrad on Twitter at CP3_777. You can follow Maxwell at Hoops Disciple. The O's or zeros. You could follow Cam at Cam with 2 M's H_. And you could follow Wilco at Wilco MCV. Again, go listen to the Floor and Ceilings on YouTube. Go listen to the Indie Basketball Podcast, the Bird Rates Podcast, the One and Done Podcast. And go check us out all on socials at the Center Hub _BB. Again, YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram. Otherwise, we will talk to you guys soon. Thanks for watching.